My sister said I was wasting my three-bedroom house because I was single while she had kids and lived in a cramped apartment. Then she offered to buy it at a family discount. I simply refused and cut contact. I'm 31 and apparently I'm a terrible person for living alone in the house my late aunt left me. Let me give you some background. My Aunt Patricia was like a second mother to me. When my parents divorced when I was 12, she stepped up in ways I'll never forget. She picked me up from school when mom was working double shifts, taught me how to cook, helped with homework, and most importantly, she listened. She never married or had kids of her own, but she poured all her love into her nieces and nephews. Patricia passed away last year after a short battle with cancer. In her will, she left me her house, a modest three-bedroom ranch in a quiet neighborhood. I was shocked and deeply moved. In her letter, she wrote that she wanted me to have a stable home, something she knew I'd never had growing up bouncing between my parents' places. I've been living here for 8 months now, slowly making it my own while keeping her memory alive in small ways. Her reading nook is still exactly as she left it, complete with her bookmark in the last novel she was reading. I've updated the kitchen and converted one bedroom into a home office since I work remotely as a software developer. The third bedroom is a guest room for when friends visit. Everything was fine until last month when my cousin Jennifer decided my living situation was personally offensive to her. Jennifer is 33, married to Robert, and they have 3 kids, Emily 8, Tyler 6, and little Zachary 3. They currently rent a 2-bedroom apartment across town. It started at our grandmother's birthday dinner. Jennifer asked how I was settling into Aunt Patricia's house. I told her it was going well, mentioned the office setup and how peaceful the neighborhood was. Her expression shifted and she said, "Must be nice having all that space to yourself." I didn't think much of it initially, but then she continued, "You know, Michael, it's kind of wasteful, don't you think? One person in a 3-bedroom house while families are cramped in tiny apartments." I was taken aback. "It's not like I asked for the house, Jen. Aunt Patricia left it to me." "I'm not saying you did," she replied, stirring her coffee with unnecessary vigor. "I'm just saying that single people don't really need all that space. You're basically using what 1/3 of the house while my kids share a bedroom, and we can barely turn around without bumping into each other." My Uncle Joseph tried to change the subject, but Jennifer wasn't done. "Houses are meant for families, Michael. They're meant to be filled with children's laughter with life, not for one person to rattle around in like some hermit." "I'm hardly a hermit," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "I have friends over. I use the space for what video game nights." She laughed, but it wasn't friendly. "That's not the same as raising the next generation. You're 31, Michael. Don't you think it's time you thought about settling down instead of playing house by yourself?" My mother, bless her, finally intervened. "Jennifer, that's enough. Patricia left the house to Michael because she wanted to. End of story." But the damage was done. Jennifer spent the rest of dinner making passive-aggressive comments about empty nesters in reverse and how some people don't understand the struggles of real families. I left early citing a work deadline, but the truth was, her words stung more than I wanted to admit. Was I being selfish? Was I wasting the house? I thought about Aunt Patricia, how she lived alone in that house for 20 years after buying it. Nobody ever called her wasteful, but then again, she was from a different generation. The next few weeks were tense. Jennifer's comments had planted a seed of doubt in my mind. I found myself walking through the house wondering if she was right. The guest room sat empty most of the time. The formal dining room I used maybe once a month. Was I just playing at being an adult, while real adults? The ones with spouses and children struggled in smaller spaces. I mentioned it to my friend Kevin during our weekly basketball game. He looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "Dude, are you seriously feeling guilty about inheriting a house? That's insane. By your cousin's logic, every single person should live in a studio apartment until they procreate." "I know it sounds stupid when you put it like that," I admitted, passing him the ball. "But she made it sound like I was being selfish keeping a family home from an actual family." "First of all," Kevin said, taking a shot, "you are an actual family. You're Patricia's family, which is why she left it to you. Second, what does Jennifer expect you to do? Give her the house? Sell it to her for cheap? Come on, man. This is jealousy pure and simple." He was right, of course. But knowing that didn't stop the guilt from gnawing at me. I'd worked hard to get where I was. I had a good job, saved responsibly, and maintained the house well. But somehow Jennifer had made me feel like none of that mattered because I didn't have a wife and kids. I threw myself into work trying to push the whole thing out of my mind. But family drama has a way of following you. 2 weeks after the birthday dinner, my phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. "Hey cousin, we're in your neighborhood this Saturday. Mind if we stop by? The kids would love to see Aunt Patricia's house." I stared at the message, my jaw tightening. Part of me wanted to say no to protect my space from her judgment, but that felt petty. Besides, Emily, Tyler, and Zachary were good kids. It wasn't their fault their mother had opinions about my lifestyle. Sure, I typed back. How about 2:00 p.m.? Perfect. See you then. Smiling face with smiling eyes. The emoji felt fake, like a smile painted over gritted teeth. But I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe she genuinely wanted to visit. Maybe she'd see the house and understand that I was taking good care of it, that Aunt Patricia's legacy was in good hands. Saturday arrived too quickly. I spent the morning cleaning even though the house was already tidy. I put away anything that might give Jennifer ammunition, the gaming console, the stack of sci-fi novels, the craft beer collection. It felt wrong hiding parts of my life, but I wanted this visit to go smoothly. Update 1, the visit that confirmed everything. They arrived at 2:15, the kids spilling out of Jennifer's minivan like puppies freed from a cage. Emily, the eldest, gave me a shy hug. Tyler high-fived me and immediately asked if I had any video games. Little Zachary hid behind his mother's leg, peering at me with wide eyes. Michael, Jennifer's voice was bright, too bright. Thanks for having us. Robert had to work, but he sends his regards. No problem, I said, stepping aside to let them in. Come on in. Can I get anyone something to drink? The kids wanted juice, which I luckily had. Jennifer asked for coffee, commenting, I'm surprised a bachelor has juice in the house. I like orange juice with breakfast, I said mildly, leading them to the living room. The kids immediately scattered to explore, and that's when Jennifer's real agenda became clear. She followed them from room to room, making observations that sounded innocent but felt like an assessment. Oh, this is a nice-sized bedroom, she said, standing in my office. Tyler and Zachary could share this easily. Don't you think, boys? Tyler, bless his innocent heart, said, but this is Uncle Michael's computer room. Jennifer laughed. Of course it is, sweetie. I'm just saying it's big enough for 2 beds. She turned to me. You must barely use the other rooms. I forced a smile. I use this as my office. I work from home, remember? Right. She moved to the guest room. And this one just sits here empty. It's a guest room. My friend Brian stayed here last month when he was in town for a conference. 1 person, 1 night. She ran her hand along the dresser as if checking for dust. Emily, honey, wouldn't you love a room like this all to yourself? Emily, who had been admiring the quilt my grandmother made, looked uncomfortable. I guess. Jennifer's tour continued to the basement, which I partially finished into a recreational space. A whole pool table for 1 person, she mused. The kids would love a playroom like this. Safe, spacious, away from the street. Mom, can we play pool? Tyler asked, bouncing on his toes. Ask your uncle, she said, emphasizing the word uncle like it meant temporary caretaker. I taught the boys how to hold a cue, while Jennifer continued her commentary. You know, Michael, houses like this used to be full of families multiple generations sometimes. Now look at us. You're here alone while we're practically living on top of each other. Jen, I didn't make the housing market, I said, helping Zachary reach the table. And I didn't ask Aunt Patricia to leave me the house. No, but you accepted it. She watched her sons play a wistful expression on her face. Patricia never had kids. She didn't understand what it's like trying to raise 3 children in a cramped apartment, the boys sharing a room, Emily barely having space for her homework. Have you considered looking for a bigger place? I suggested, knowing it was the wrong thing to say the moment it left my mouth. Her eyes flashed. Do you have any idea what rent costs for a 3-bedroom in this area, or what mortgage payments would be? Not everyone inherits property, Michael. Some of us have to struggle. The unfairness of that statement made my chest tight. I'd struggled plenty living out of a suitcase as a kid, moving between parents, working 2 jobs through college, living in a studio apartment with a broken AC for 3 years while I saved every penny. But Jennifer didn't want to hear about that. In her narrative, I was the privileged single man hoarding resources. I think what you mean, I said carefully, is that not everyone was close enough to Aunt Patricia to be remembered in her will. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Jennifer's smile became fixed, frozen. We were all close to Patricia. Then you know she valued independence. I continued watching Tyler accidentally scratch the pool table and feeling a flare of anxiety. She lived alone for 20 years. She understood that a home isn't just about how many people are in it. She was lonely, Jennifer shot back. She told me once she wished she'd had children. That was a lie, and we both knew it. Patricia had been very clear about her choices. She'd had opportunities to marry, to have children, but she'd chosen her career, her travels, her freedom. She'd told me once that she loved being the aunt, because she could give us back. Mom, I'm hungry, Emily said, appearing at Jennifer's elbow. We should go, Jennifer said, gathering her purse. Kids say goodbye to Uncle Michael. As they filed out, Jennifer paused at the door. You know, Michael, someday you'll understand. When you have a family of your own, if you ever do, you'll realize how selfish it is to keep all this space to yourself. Jennifer, I said, my patience finally snapping, what exactly do you want from me? She tilted her head, all false innocence. I don't want anything from you, Michael. I just think it's sad that Patricia's house isn't filled with the laughter of children. That's what she would have wanted. No, I said firmly. What she wanted was for me to have a stable home. That's why she left it to me. Jennifer loaded the kids into the van without another word. As they drove away, Tyler waved enthusiastically from the back window, oblivious to the tension. I waved back, then went inside and poured myself a scotch, Patricia's favorite brand, which I kept in her honor. I sat in her reading nook in the chair that still smelled faintly of her lavender perfume and tried to shake off the encounter. But Jennifer's words echoed selfish, wasting space, what she would have wanted. I knew Patricia better than that. She would have been appalled by Jennifer's behavior, but knowing that didn't stop the doubt from creeping in. Was I being selfish? Was there some unspoken rule that single people should minimize their footprint until they partnered up and procreated? Update 2, the family gathering ambush. I thought Jennifer would let it go after her visit. I was wrong. Over the next few months, her campaign intensified, though subtly. Every family gathering became a minefield of passive-aggressive comments and pointed observations. At my nephew's birthday party, my other cousin Linda's son Jennifer made sure to loudly discuss how challenging it was to host playdates in her tiny apartment. When I offered to host a family barbecue at my house, she responded, "Oh, that's right, you have all that space. Must be nice not to worry about children breaking things." The breaking point came at Thanksgiving. We were at my mother's house, the whole extended family crammed around her dining room table. Jennifer had been uncharacteristically quiet during dinner, which should have been my first warning. As we were clearing dessert plates, she clinked her fork against her glass. "I have something I'd like to say," she announced. The room fell silent. Robert looked uncomfortable, which told me he knew what was coming. "This year, I'm thankful for family," Jennifer began, "for the love and support we give each other, for understanding that family means sacrifice, sharing, and putting others before ourselves." Several relatives murmured agreement. My stomach tightened. "But I'm also sad," she continued, her voice taking on a performative quality. "I'm sad that in today's world, we've lost sight of what family really means. We have a housing crisis in this country. Families struggling to find adequate space to raise their children while others—" She paused, glancing at me. "Enjoy luxury alone." "Jennifer," my mother warned. "No, Nancy, let me finish. I think Patricia would be heartbroken to know that her house, a house meant for family, sits mostly empty, while her great-nephew and nieces are cramped in a tiny apartment. She loved children. She would have wanted her home filled with their laughter." "That's enough," I said, standing up. "Is it?" Jennifer's eyes were bright with unshed tears. Crocodile tears, I realized. "Michael, you're a wonderful person, but you're 31 years old, single with no plans for a family. You have a 3-bedroom house that you admittedly only use 1/3 of. Meanwhile, my children, Patricia's blood relatives too, are sharing a bedroom doing homework on the kitchen table because we have no space." "Jennifer, this is neither the time nor the place," Uncle Joseph interjected. But Jennifer was on a roll. "I'm not asking for charity. I'm asking for family to act like family, for those blessed with abundance to share with those in need. Isn't that what Patricia would have wanted?" The room was dead silent. All eyes were on me. I could feel the judgment, the questions. Some relatives looked sympathetic to Jennifer. Others looked appalled. Most just looked uncomfortable. "What Patricia wanted," I said slowly, "was clearly stated in her will. She left the house to me. Not to you, not to be divided among the cousins, but to me. If you have a problem with that, take it up with her estate lawyer." "Michael?" My grandmother spoke for the first time. "Jennifer is not suggesting anything inappropriate. She's simply expressing her feelings." "No, Grandma, she's trying to guilt me into giving her my house." I looked around the room. "Let's call this what it is. Jennifer thinks that because I'm single and childless, I don't deserve a home, that my life, my needs, my right to live comfortably are less valid than hers because she chose to have 3 children. Children aren't a choice. They're a blessing. And yes, I do think families should come first. I think it's selfish for one person to hoard resources that could change the lives of children. Selfish loners who don't understand that houses are meant for real families." "Not what?" I interrupted. "Not single people. Not people who work hard and maintain their homes. Not people who were there for Patricia when she was sick. That last part was a low blow, but I was angry. Jennifer had visited Patricia maybe twice during her illness. I'd been there every day after work, cooking meals, driving her to appointments, sitting with her during chemo. "How dare you?" Jennifer hissed. "How dare you?" I shot back. "How dare you use a family gathering to publicly shame me for inheriting a house? How dare you suggest that my life is worth less than yours because I don't have children? And how dare you invoke Patricia's name to manipulate me?" I grabbed my coat. "I'm done. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone." I left to a chorus of voices, some calling my name, others arguing. I heard my mother defending me, Uncle Joseph trying to restore order, and Jennifer's voice rising above it all. "He's hoarding space that could give my children the childhood they deserve." I drove home in a fury, my hands gripping the steering wheel. When I got to the house, my house, I stood in the doorway for a long moment. It was quiet, peaceful, the home Patricia had worked so hard to create, to maintain, to pass on to someone she trusted to care for it. I walked through each room, seeing it differently now, not as empty space or wasted potential, but as my home. My office where I built my career, my guest room where friends felt welcome, my basement where I hosted game nights and Super Bowl parties, my kitchen where I taught myself to cook Patricia's recipes. This wasn't a house waiting for a real family. This was my family home. I was the family. Update 3: The aftermath and resolution. The Thanksgiving incident created a family schism. Some relatives thought I'd overreacted. Others were appalled by Jennifer's behavior. My mother was firmly in my camp, as was Uncle Joseph. Grandma tried to play peacemaker, suggesting that both parties had valid points. I didn't hear from Jennifer for 2 weeks. Then I received an email that was clearly written by Robert but signed by both of them. It was a formal proposal to purchase the house at fair market value minus family discount with a payment plan that would make it feasible for a young family. The audacity was breathtaking. I forwarded it to my lawyer friend, who laughed out loud. Fair market value minus family discount. What's that? 30% off and a payment plan? This is insulting. I didn't respond to the email. Instead, I made some decisions. First, I had the house formally appraised. It was worth more than I thought. Patricia had maintained it beautifully, and the neighborhood had appreciated significantly. The equity she'd built over 20 years was substantial. Second, I met with a financial advisor. I'd been considering starting my own software development firm, and the house's equity could provide startup capital if needed. But more importantly, I wanted to ensure I was maximizing the gift Patricia had given me. Third, and most importantly, I decided to fully embrace my life as it was. I stopped feeling guilty about the empty rooms and started seeing them as possibilities. I converted the basement into a proper home theater. I turned the guest room into a library and meditation space. I planted Patricia's favorite flowers in the garden she'd never quite finished. A month after Thanksgiving, Jennifer showed up unannounced. It was a Saturday morning, and I was in the garage refinishing a table I'd bought at an estate sale. "We need to talk," she said without preamble. I kept sanding. "Do we?" "Michael, please. I'm sorry about Thanksgiving. I handled it badly." I set down the sandpaper and looked at her. She seemed tired, older. For a moment, I felt sympathy. Then I remembered her accusations. "Which part are you sorry for?" I asked. "Calling me selfish, saying I'm not a real family, trying to guilt me in front of everyone, or sending that insulting purchase offer." She flinched. "All of it. I was. I've been stressed. The kids are growing. The apartment feels smaller every day. And when I see you here alone in this big house, you see someone who doesn't deserve what they have," I finished. "No. Well, maybe. I don't know." She sat on a paint can, deflating. "Do you know what it's like, Michael, watching your kids share a room, knowing they need space to grow, to be individuals, seeing houses we can't afford, even with Robert's promotion, then coming here and seeing empty rooms?" "I understand that's hard," I said carefully. "But Jennifer, your financial situation isn't my responsibility, and more importantly, my life choices don't invalidate my right to a home." "But you don't need all this space." "Says who?" I challenged. "I work from home. I need an office. I have friends and occasionally family visit. I need a guest room. I have hobbies. I entertain. I live a full life. Just because it doesn't look like yours doesn't mean it's empty." She was quiet for a moment. "What about the future? What if you meet someone, have kids? Won't you feel bad that you kept this house from us?" "If my life changes, I'll adapt. But I'm not going to live in a studio apartment on the off chance that someday I might partner up." I paused. "And Jennifer, Even if I did decide to sell it, wouldn't be to family. Not after this. Her face crumpled. I've ruined it, haven't I? Any chance of you helping us? You ruined it the moment you decided I owed you something because you have kids and I don't. I stood up. I think you should go. She left without another word. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Final update. 4 months later. It's been 4 months since that garage conversation, and I need to share how this all resolved. Though resolved might be too neat a word for the mess Jennifer created. After our confrontation, Jennifer went on a campaign that can only be described as scorched earth. She told anyone who would listen that I was a selfish loner who was hoarding resources and preventing her children from having the childhood they deserve. She created a narrative where she was the struggling mother denied help by her heartless cousin. The story mutated with each telling. Suddenly, Patricia had promised the house to Jennifer before she died. I had manipulated a dying woman. I was planning to sell to developers who would tear down Patricia's beloved home. None of it was true, but truth rarely matters in family gossip. The final straw came when Emily, her 8-year-old daughter, called me crying. She was at a friend's house and had snuck the phone. "Uncle Michael," she sobbed, "Mommy says we can't see you anymore because you're mean and won't share, but you're not mean. You taught us pool and gave us juice." My heart broke. "Emily, honey, sometimes adults have disagreements. It's not your fault. Mommy says if you shared the house, I could have my own room and we could have a dog and everything would be perfect. Why won't you share Uncle Michael?" How do you explain adult selfishness to a child? How do you tell an 8-year-old that her mother is using her as emotional ammunition? Emily, sharing is important, but houses aren't like toys. They're complicated. Your mom and I disagree about some grown-up stuff, but it has nothing to do with you, okay? "Okay, I miss you," she whispered. "And I miss Aunt Patricia's house. It smells like cookies." That did it. Jennifer had crossed a line, poisoning her children against me. But more than that, she was teaching them that manipulation and guilt were acceptable ways to get what you want. I made a decision that night, not out of anger, but out of clarity. The next day, I called a family meeting. Not everyone, just the key players. My mother, Uncle Joseph, Grandma, Jennifer, Robert, and Linda, my other cousin, who'd been notably quiet during this whole drama. We met at Grandma's house, neutral ground. Jennifer looked triumphant, probably thinking I was about to cave. Robert looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "I've made some decisions about the house," I began. Jennifer leaned forward eagerly. "First, I want to address the elephant in the room. Jennifer, your behavior over the past few months has been harassment. You've slandered me to family members, tried to manipulate me through guilt, and worst of all, you've involved your children in adult matters." "I've done nothing but tell the truth," she said stiffly. "Really, Emily called me yesterday. You've been telling her that I'm the reason she doesn't have her own room. That's not the truth, Jennifer. That's manipulation." Robert's head snapped up. "Emily called you." She was crying. I said, meeting his eyes. "She thinks I'm mean because I won't share the house. She's 8 years old and you're making her carry your resentment." "How dare," Jennifer started. "Sit down," Grandma said sharply. "Michael, continue." I pulled out a folder. "I've had the house appraised. I've also had a lawyer draw up some documents. I'm establishing the Patricia Memorial Fund." Confused looks all around. "I'm taking out a home equity loan against the house. The funds will be used to create an education trust for all of Patricia's great-nieces and nephews, Emily, Tyler, Zachary, and Linda's kids. Each child will have access to funds for college or trade school when they turn 18. Linda gasped. "Michael, that's incredibly generous." "It's what Patricia would have wanted," I said. "She valued education and independence. This way her legacy helps all the kids, not just one family." "But what about the house?" Jennifer asked. "The house remains mine," I said firmly. "I'll be responsible for the loan payments. The kids get educational opportunities and I keep my home. That's the deal." "That's not what we need housing now, not college funds in 10 years. Jennifer's mask finally slipped completely. "And there it is," I said quietly. "This was never about the kids, was it? It was about you wanting a free house." "How can you be so selfish?" she exploded. "Education doesn't matter if they don't have a proper home now." "They have a home," Robert said quietly. "It's not as big as we'd like, but it's a home." "Jennifer, stop." She turned on him. "You're taking his side." "I'm taking our children's side," he said firmly. "Michael is offering to help fund their education. That's more than we could save on our own, and you're throwing it in his face because it's not the help you wanted." "But the house is not ours," Robert said. "It was never ours. It will never be ours. And frankly, after your behavior, we're lucky Michael is willing to do anything for us." The room was silent. Jennifer looked around for support, found none, and grabbed her purse. "Fine, but when our children ask why they grew up in a cramped apartment while their cousin lived in luxury, I'll tell them the truth." "No," I said, standing. "You'll tell them that their Uncle Michael loved them enough to invest in their future. You'll tell them that education opens doors. And you'll stop poisoning them against me, or I'll withdraw the offer entirely." She left without another word. Robert stayed behind. "Michael," he said quietly, "I'm sorry. I should have stopped this months ago. I knew what she was doing was wrong, but marriage is complicated." "I get it," I said. "But Robert, those kids don't deserve to be pawns in Jennifer's jealousy." "I know, I'll handle it." He shook my hand. "And thank you for the education funds. That's life-changing." The meeting ended with Grandma hugging me tightly. "Patricia would be proud," she whispered. "You honored her memory perfectly." That was 2 months ago. The education fund is established and growing. Jennifer and I don't speak, but Robert brings the kids by occasionally. Emily no longer asks about sharing the house. She's too excited about the college fund and the books I've been buying her about astronomy, her new passion. I've continued making the house truly mine. The meditation room has become my sanctuary. The home theater hosts monthly movie nights for friends. The garden is thriving with Patricia's flowers and my added vegetables. Sometimes I stand in the kitchen, coffee in hand, and think about Jennifer's words, selfish loner, not a real family hoarding space. But then I look around at the home I've created, the life I've built, the legacy I'm honoring. I see Patricia's paintings on the walls, smell her roses blooming outside, feel the warmth of a space filled with memory and possibility. This house isn't empty. It's full of life. My life. A life that matters just as much as any other children or no children, partner or no partner. Patricia knew that. She lived it for 20 years in this house, creating a haven of independence and love. She passed that gift to me not because I was perfect or because I fit some ideal of family, but because she knew I would understand and preserve what she'd built. The house isn't wasted on me. It's home, and no amount of guilt, manipulation, or societal pressure will convince me otherwise. As Patricia used to say, family isn't about blood or obligation, Michael. It's about respect and love. Remember that when I'm gone. I remember Aunt Patricia every single day.